Alright guys, welcome to part 2, the second video of this. Today we're going to look at standard.
Best format.
Yeah, best format, that's right. And it's between Nuno and Kelvin in the top 8 of EU. And they were actually playing Media World decks, right?
Media World, yes.
Yeah.
Kind of a mirror.
Yeah, that's right. Now, this is definitely one of those matchups we don't really test against each other. We'll test that specific matchup, right? Because one, it's kind of a mirror. And two, like... Would it really have come up when you're preparing for VRO? It's one of the lower matchups that you'd
We definitely didn't expect too many people to bring it.
Yeah. It's like you're looking at Bruce, right? You're looking at Loro. Those are best
Bastions.
Bastion, that's right. So the possibility of a Media World mirror is probably just like if you had a
team kill.
Yeah, team kill. But apparently a lot of the better play, or some best minds do think alike, right? And EU was actually won by pure Gravidia. So
Yeah,
definitely,
which is crazy.
Yeah, Gravidia definitely popping off. Rock Gang, definitely popping off a lot more in the West than in Japan. I guess you two also have a bit of a history with each other too.
Yeah, actually, I think I first met Nuno on Worlds, 2020-2019 circuit.
Yeah.
And we were like round one Swiss paired.
Wow. All right.
But yeah, I think. At that time, we were also playing mirrors. Silver Thorns actually won that game.
Wow!
But he won the rest of the tournament. So
that's
congrats.
Good trade-off.
So yeah, you got to be the world champion.
Yes.
Whereas I'm just a scrub.
Well, let's take a look at the game. Let's jump into it. You're on the left. They just have the
mixed up the name, I think.
Yeah. But I think one of the biggest things to also pay attention to is that in this BRO, the deck lists were all open, so there were a lot of things you could look at the deck and see, okay, there's some interesting.
Nuno's list is similar, but definitely a bit different to the list that we've been playing with as well.
Yeah, and even though we can see the list, but we also don't have time to actually test. You have NA region to play. No one can kind of emulate Nuno's playstyle, and you can only really see the game maybe if it's on stream, but you can't rewind the stream as well. It's not like in real life where you can just go to the table and kind of take a look at what's going on and how they're playing.
Fortunately, right now we see the first difference that we see in Nuno's play. He placed Meteor on turn 1 to Soul Charge, which is
not something
that we would do.
Yeah. We wouldn't do that, yeah.
But there's a good reason for him doing it.
Which we will see very shortly in second turn. So, me going second. Now, right one on search. And I think here I passed the turn.
Typical Kelvin.
Well, that's kind of one of the adaptations that really came down to, ideas that, kind of thought about, right? It's, when you play against Media World, the second turn is very strong, especially for our builds that we were playing, right?
Yes.
But you want to rush down your opponent. But if you just don't get the counter blast,
you lose quite a bit of momentum. Not everything, but it basically has to do with going second, maybe on the receiving end of that full board.
Put it this way: a 15k Rhaegar on the second turn is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And here with this is why Soul Charge last time to Soul Blast 3 draw 1, because he runs a different grade to the Gravidian one. Whereas I think most of the WCC list runs the Orphist grade 2.
Yeah.
Place another one.
And one thing that's very important in this matchup as well is that every card you commit you expect will just kind of disappear.
Yes, on grade 3 turns.
Yeah, Media's just gonna keep on flying and stuff is gonna die. It's just
going second, getting a crit's not great, especially after passing a turn, so I'm kind of low on hand at this point, right?
Well, in a way here, right, is you have 2 CBs, so you're confirmed to be able to play anything you want.
Yes.
You won't get restricted by, getting CB stuff, which is a big thing when you're playing Gravidia, right? If you're afraid of Gravidia's medias, you can actually control when they can do the media plays.
Yes, especially now that Nuno committed a rear guard. So here, again, I have the option to sort of do a bit of a sub-optimal play, but I think I'll just attack his rear guard.
Yeah, and that's pretty significant.
It goes back to, again, the open deck list, because I do think Nuno doesn't play counter charges.
Yes.
Ah.
So with that knowledge, Kelvin is able to make this play of killing the Rhaegar, passing,
I can safely say, like, I'm not gonna get Meteor this turn at least, because he's got no counter blast. And also, like, I played the token in the front row, so can swing to his rear guard if it's guarded, because it is quite a valuable rear guard.
It makes sure that rear guard is going to die.
Yes.
Yeah.
And plus, it's 15k in both turns, so even if Nuno wants to, like, swing into it with anything, it will be a bit...
I mean, his Vanguard can't even attack it.
I mean, it's also pretty opportunistic when you think about it. If Nuno did not put anything down last turn, would you have swung with your Vanguard?
I think I would have to. It's just I'm a bit too far behind, because he got a critical.
Yeah, but since he did, it's just like a perfect opportunity to swing into that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just...
kind of just like works out, but yeah, every turn the sort of plan just goes out of the window and you have to adapt.
Yeah. So here, like Nuno with no CV can't actually do any media plays.
Yeah.
Right. He gets some medias, and he can draw cards.
He actually soul charges from his meteors,
which is again something that we don't usually do.
This is why he does that, because he runs a lot of the Soul Blast 3 draw 1. I can't remember which Gravidia it's called.
I think it's
Barringer?
Barringer, yeah? Barringer or Stanner? I think it's Barringer.
Barringer, yeah. Stanner is the shield one.
Yeah. But I think, okay, here's the thing, right, is you've got 2 draws, you also soul charge twice, then you've got another draw, right? That is...
It's quite a big jump in resource.
Yeah, but you're also accelerating through your deck quite a lot. Because there's a lot of resources in a Gravidia deck because of the lack of space you actually have in the deck, right? You have to run a bunch of medias. But that also means, like, when all your stuff is dying, the amount of cards that you can actually place down becomes an issue.
You actually run out of units, basically, in a mirror.
Because there's a low count of units in the media deck to begin with.
So I think because Nuno's able to draw a few more cards than you, right? He's able to at least put down like a card every turn, not worry too much about it dying.
I mean, look at it this way, right? Now Nuno is in 0 damage, I'm on 2 damage, I've got 3 cards in hand, it's got like something like 6 or 7. It's quite a big difference in resources, and it was uphill from here.
Like, normally what Gravidia will, at least your build wants to do, right, is to rush at 2, and you had 2 CB to be able to do that, but then you have walked into like a huge shutdown turn. With just, giving Nuno damage and then Nuno popping 3 meters, and your game is done.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I think it's pretty interesting to see how you kind of change the strategy, and the strategy might not be as straightforward as hitting your opponent 6 damage, even though it is. But it could be like a much more long-term strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of it is just to slow down the momentum of the game so you don't get swept away by your opponent's plays.
Yeah. Like, for example, if you put 5 cards down, you lose the game.
No, definitely.
You lose the game, right? Like,
I think if I dropped 2 rearguards and like attack his Vanguard, I would have lost this game like pretty much on turn 4.
Yeah, because it's not just about like CB management. There's also media management. Card management. Lots of managing, right? It's literally management simulator, it seems. But putting two cards down is like trying to bait your opponent to do a 3 media play, right?
Well, it's the optimal like amount of cards to drop, right? Especially if you're gonna like persona, because only your front rows get 10k.
Yeah.
But from here it's like I just want rear guards that can hit 13k without committing boost, because committing boost is probably the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. And I think like it's kind of interesting to see like the D games taking so long to finish as well, because I think D ended up taking a long time. That just wasn't just because of extra rounds. There was like a lot of decks going to like the end of the deck.
Yeah, true. But also it's probably because like most of the prominent decks are actually quite balanced against each other. Which is quite interesting to see. Vanguard. So here we see Nuno persona riding and getting a whole lot of meteors out. It's like
Nuno runs more rocks than our build. I think he runs 12, whereas we are only playing 9 to 10.
Yeah. He gets like an extra turn of triple rock or something.
Yeah, but also partially because he runs the grade 2 and he really needs to get that first turn soul charge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's incentive. Ooh, he's still playing quite a bit of them from hand.
Yeah, and like right now it looks like Nuno has a good amount of like rocks in his storage, but those rocks can go away, especially when you want to like push. Like here, if you pop 3 rocks, because it's okay. Like you can say, you know, you stored a lot of rocks, you want the crit, your opponent's at like low damage. This is the perfect way to kind of increase that damage count, right? And you're throwing 1 rock for you're just committing an extra rock, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But I do like to say like Nuno's also adapting because he knows that, you know, he said because he runs more rocks, he has less cards. Yeah, he also has less cards that he can play out because there's 3 more spaces in his deck that's dedicated rock. So he's not committing basically a lot of cards down for you to get like a perfect kind of 3 rock turn.
Definitely not.
Even though that might not even be your incentive, right? You might not be going, I don't really care about 3 rocking. I'm just the 1 rock person, right?
And like the chance of him doing a 5 is always still there, so that's just haunting at the back of your mind, like, oh, he could have just like pop 5 any moment and steal the game.
Yes.
Yeah, but at the same time, you kind of want him to do the 5 rock against like what a two field board because it's like all these rocks, right?
Yeah.
Like
you can hope he doesn't trigger. So here, okay, Persona Ride for a Persona Ride, and this is a nice thing with Gravidia, you know, like just by riding your great, by Persona Riding, you're getting everything that you need. You get your retires, you get your draws hopefully into useful units and the power.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
The big keyword there.
I know. I mean,
think about all the test games where we just draw 2 more rocks.
Yeah, I know. Right? It's like Persona Ride solo swing.
I mean, it's such a big swing too. It's like 3 cards, then Twin Drive.
Yeah.
Now suddenly you have a few more playables to play down.
If you compare to like Zorga, this swing is like beautiful. For a 3 swing deck.
And I think do you commit something else here as well? It's like a 3 attack, a bit behind.
Pretty sure whenever I Persona Ride, I just play something in the front row because I don't want to miss out from that plus 10k.
True.
Especially after I lost one of the Persona Rides in damage.
In a way though, it's also that perfect scenario of like, you know, 2 cards committed, kind of bait your opponent to pop a 3, right? But if they pop a 2, that's kind of even better. Because like one other thing that we mentioned before that Nuno.
That's a front crit. I think that was like a pretty like lucky.
It's a pretty good turn.
Yeah, because he's taking it.
How you were saying?
So one thing is that Nuno technically has a cap also on the amount of times he can meteor because I think we mentioned before that he doesn't run the counter charge.
Yes.
So unless he heals, then the amount of CB he uses is basically has to convert into rocks kind of thing, right?
Then again, nothing else in his list counter blasts. So
except for the world.
Yeah, so don't forget that the world has still
been
sitting in his hand that he hasn't played down yet.
Because he's opted to play a meteor every turn, which is like, you know, not a bad option.
And although like the crit front is good, but remember guys, when you Persona Ride, you get 2 blanks out of your deck. You can draw, and sometimes if you draw into non-triggers, your deck skews pretty heavily towards triggering.
And here Nuno actually goes to 5 damage and goes to the last one, and
that was a pretty huge turn, right? Like, you know, from
massive,
2 to 5.
Really didn't expect that, actually. I thought it was gonna be like another 1 turn of grind, but now I think we'll see Nuno do a bit more push. I was thinking he might do a 5 here.
Ooh, 5, but he went for the 3.
Going for the 3 still.
Because he's good, man.
He's good.
No point going for the 5.
Nah, never.
That's the biggest difference between, you know, this and like a pure Gravidia deck. Gravidia deck can kind of more freely go into 5, especially per set 4 as well.
Definitely.
They can 5 all day. But this again, we've seen Nuno only committing 1 card, which is kind of good for you because that means like there's less pressure on your end.
Yep.
And like kind of as the if we talk about tempo, right? You know, you're using less resources, you're using less meteors to get the value, compared to like Nuno, who is forced to at least pop 2 rocks every turn, to be able to kind of do the same thing.
Well, it sort of goes both ways because I don't have to pop 3. Especially when he's already at 5 damage, I can just safely just pop 1.
Yeah. For that 1 turn again, pushing to 5 means, you know, you don't have to.
And like you'll see like some weird guards here and there, and I think spoilers after the game, we actually did talk to each other, and it's like, when did you get your over trigger? Because that's playing with Brand Gate Mirror. it's almost just in the back of your mind that the one overtrigger can just flip the game entirely.
Yeah,
so you have
the brand gate overtrigger is
the most impactful one.
Yes.
Yeah, like,
and that's actually the reason why I didn't want to go to 4 damage there, because if it gets next turn, I can at least take one of the Vanguard that gets double crit.
And like, one of the things is through just persona riding as well. I talked about you're skewing your trigger counts quite heavily. If, like, you draw into non-triggers, right? Your overtrigger is a trigger, so
Yeah.
when that comes out, it's pretty huge, right? Like, any of the those 2 triggers you triggered before could have been like the overtrigger too, and that would have just absolutely demolished the game, right? So it's very the brand gate overtrigger is pretty much the scariest.
And it's also conveniently that Gravidia War wants to start attacking from grade 2.
Yeah, tri-laning at grade 2.
And so you are almost never gonna miss out on the full power of that overtrigger if you do hit it offensively.
Yes. I think you did that on a few games. Grade 2 game.
Grade 2 gaming. I think we're gonna probably see a pretty important breakpoint though at some point on Nuno's side, because he's gonna be using a few more of his CBs, and it gets to a point where, like, you're at max CB, face down.
Yep.
Now you're suddenly not afraid of getting stuff retired, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And plus here, like, you saw me dropping a trigger just to attack to get the power from that persona ride, so you're like, no, this guy's out of units, which actually was out of units.
Wow. Okay. 'Cause everything dies.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Just lose to everything. That's the trade-off of, like, me wanting to get power from persona right versus Nuno is like, I'm just gonna put one down and, like, retire 2 of yours.
So it's pretty unfortunate on Nuno's side though. He hasn't been able to persona ride for a while now.
I think one of his went to damage. He did 1. So yeah, I was on 2 persona and Nuno's on 1.
Both players' decks are getting quite low though, but I think it's kind of expected, right? I mentioned before a lot of decks going to time, well, not time, but to, like, deck out. But when your deck kind of kills off all your opponent's attackers and then draws a bunch, it's you're likely just going to time. And there's just not been much pressure going on, right?
Nope.
Although Kelvin has been persona riding every turn, Nuno did get his, like, I think it's the Baronses early to get some extra draws, and then Nuno just hasn't been able to persona ride for many of his turns, so Kelvin doesn't have to commit much.
He missed 1 persona ride.
Yeah, 1 persona, but he only been committing, like, 1 card every turn as well.
Definitely.
So there's just been nothing that's he has to worry about, right?
Yep, definitely, like, takes off the pressure. So here I'm like,
So here you kind of have to no guard or you're stuck behind a CB.
That's
non-CB
one.
turn, right?
And also, it feels like since it's only popping 2, he's not getting a crit here. I think this is the safest bet I can make. And which he got 1 crit, but it's not a double crit. And even if it's an over trigger on that turn, I think I would still survive because I still have 1 PG.
You only lose to double crit or, like, over trigger crit, for
Definitely,
example.
yes.
Yeah.
And actually, funnily enough, the Vanguard couldn't hit because it was hitting for, like, 18. And was
33.
Yeah. So here,
like, I was thinking maybe Nuno should have popped that 3rd rock here, to force you to guard. But I'm also not 100% sure whether how that's going to impact the next turns. So I'm still pondering on whether popping 3 rocks there would be better or not.
It's here's the thing. If you popped all the rocks here, right, Kelvin gonna go, even if you have 1 CB, how many rocks can you actually put down? And the answer is, like, probably 1 or 2. That kind of makes us feel pretty safe.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. So it's like, when do you want to play your units and when are you ready to have them get retired?
Yeah.
I guess another important thing here is that, Kelvin's actually has, like, two Eclipse Worlds, right?
Yes.
So he gets to get that double token going.
Yeah. And most importantly, it's a unit that can swing without persona ride or boost.
Very important in this matchup. And now you gotta do what Nuno's been doing if you want to, right? Just not commit anything to
Kind of, yeah. So this is sort of like the reverse situation now. And actually, if you didn't noticed last turn when I Persona Ride only searched for one meteor, which kind of tells like I was actually out.
Which is what usually happens with our build. We're only running 9 rocks. Runs out pretty quickly.
Normally games don't go like this long, right?
Yeah,
but,
definitely
in
not.
the mirror, it's just, it is
like
what it is.
Turn 6.
Yeah. But look, we're entering a different kind of win con, which is you don't have many cards in your deck. Nuno doesn't have many cards in the deck.
Yeah, it's like almost all the cards are like 2/3 of the cards on both players' side of the field has been out. So the potential of decking out is definitely there for both of us.
Like in terms of hand, though, Nuno is very getting very low, right? There's what, like 5 cards in the deck in his hands. Meanwhile, for you, I think you got an extra Persona Ride, so your hand is looking slightly.
I was 2+, but I also skipped once, right? So that's.
It's also because Nuno went to 5 and has to guard those attacks that Kelvin's making.
Yes. The small pokes.
Yeah.
So a null is coming out here, which is pretty big.
Because again, over trigger.
Yeah. And then this is another poke that he has to guard.
Yeah.
And if you look at Nuno, it's like what, three cards in hand?
So down to 2 cards now?
And here's the funny thing with Gravidian Mirrors, because you're on so many little units, even if you attack with a 5k shield, you usually still guard with the 50k anyways, because you wanna keep the units.
It's kind of D, right? It's also kind of D, but with Gravidia you want to keep a normal units.
Alright, so we're looking at Nuno with 5 cards in deck, and Kelvin also has 5.
So
So technically the clock is on Kelvin's side. But not on Nuno's side.
If we both just passed each other's turn.
Yeah, like
Wait. No, it's on
it's
Kelvin's
on
side.
me. Because he's already 5 main phase.
Because Kelvin would draw that first
yeah,
card.
it's a weird way to put it. I'm getting confused myself, Like the clock is favoring Nuno. The clock is on Kelvin.
Yes.
But yeah. But in terms of who will deck out first, it will be Kelvin if Nuno just doesn't attack here.
Yeah.
But
Nuno probably has to do a twin drive here because of the low hand size.
He's on.
Yeah, there's this threshold, right, where you can start just attacking regards. However, one of the really annoying thing is that token is 15k. Again, you have to kind of commit a card down to actually confirm hit into it. And then you also have to be able to have, like, even though you go, okay, my opponent's on 4, he's gonna 5 cards, he's gonna draw to 4. That still means he has a twin drive next turn, and if he's forced to twin drive, he will do it, and I still have to somehow guard that and not die.
Yes, because we're both on 5 at this point, and it's like, at which point you pass turn and which point you still can slip in that last twin drive. It's quite important.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things, you were saying that the token is 15, so it's hard to kill it. He can kill it with a rock, but that requires the Vanguard attacking.
That's right.
Yes.
The retiring is stuck behind twin drive. It's a point like when twin drive is actually almost a detriment. And here, normally you would be counting triggers, but Nuno asked a very interesting question. He asked me how many normal units, which normal units were out.
Yeah. That's well, you can see on the deck, but you want to make sure you want to count, like, okay, how many does he still have left?
How many cards can you still attack with?
Yeah. I guess, okay, here's the other interesting thing about Gravidia is not just the token is 15, also your, like, I think Stana is also 15. So that's also a very annoying target to attack into.
And there's another one actually, because I run 2 worlds in my deck.
Yeah, but so if you don't have any rocks in your set zone, what's his name?
Destajade is 12 though.
No, it's 15.
If we have 2 worlds, it becomes 15k.
That's really annoying.
So that was like my backup plan. But again, I was on 0 CB and I still had 1 rock. But I think I still have a bubble main, so in case of emergency, I can pop a bubble main, twin drive, pop the last meteor, and then have 15k on my field. So here is Vanguard's attacking. So we still haven't seen over trigger at this point. So if he gets it, like, I mean, that's it. Gets an Persona Ride, unfortunately.
A bit late,
yeah.
Very late.
It's actually detrimental now because it's not
it's
a shield.
Dead card.
Yeah.
It's the 13k unit though.
Okay.
So
now we can watch Kelvin play out his turn, I guess. Now the clock is favoring Kelvin, right? Because Nuno was forced to a twin drive. and now it's kind of like your end game plays in Vanguard when both players have low decks.
This is when the chess starts.
The chess, yeah. If Kelvin actually twin drives here, it's actually kind of unfavorable for you, right? Because you'll go down to 2 cards. So that could just straight up be a throw.
Both options were on the table. I mean, we don't like Nuno's hand. I remember was like one of the crits that he triggered.
Yes.
The grade 3, and I think I remember he has one more PG left. So.
We get to see that card we talked about just before, one of the 15k side columns. Where are you swinging to this? Just Vanguard?
I'm pretty sure it's swinging to Vanguard because the 8k doesn't hit anything.
Except the Bobo me now.
Yeah, which is I can afford losing.
Yeah. So he threw away two triggers just then.
Yep.
And then didn't attack with Vanguard. Wow.
No way. It was too risky, I think. And I think because the Stanner is also 10k shield. So as an intercept material, it's quite
very
strong.
good. Actually, now that you mention it, because now Nuno can't even attack with Vanguard. You know, it's.
He's down to like all his units, which is like he saved the good ones left. If you see.
So that thing's hitting. That side's hitting 23.
That's right.
And the Stanner that's a Stanner on Nuno's side. Can hit your Stanner.
Yes. Oh. So I think he was actually attacking. Nah, it doesn't matter because I'm on 5 damage anyways. But 5k shield either way.
So nice 2 15ks. Now your turn. You can just attack, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's like.
I mean, even if he's forced to intercept with his stand, that's pretty good too.
Yes.
So guards, and then last attack here. I'm assuming. There's no way you attack with Vanguard.
That's the over trigger.
Wow.
I think it's got the PG left in his hand.
And then another one, and then you shoot. Wow. Okay. All right.
I drew that card on like turn 3.
And it just went through deck out, right? Just went through deck out.
Yeah, 2 cards left in the deck.
Okay. At what point do you think you realize you've won though? Because that's like on those endgame scenarios, you kind of know, when you have so many, you have all the defensives in hand. You can unlikely know how much power you need to guard each attack. What was it which turn was it?
I would say that's after his Vanguard swings, and I used the 2 fronts for a 40k shield.
Yeah.
And he didn't flip an over trigger.
So that was when he went from 5 deck to
3
deck.
and then now you can do the.
Because at that point, I haven't seen his last persona and I haven't seen his over trigger, which there is that potential of just swinging with like 3 really big columns, and I would have like lost to that.
Yeah.
So not seeing the persona and not seeing the over trigger was like, okay, I think I got this just with everything in my hand.
Okay, I guess like what is also some takeaways we can talk about for that game, on like the unexpected like developments. I guess like one of the things is that we didn't really know how Nuno would play his deck, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of that can kind of change what kind of win cons you're going for.
Definitely.
In terms of preparing for the game as well, you had like a clear kind of no damage early game kind of idea.
Part of that is also like it is still a mirror, and you still need to know like how your deck operates in those like weird situations where your opponent passes the turn and you're like, there goes my turn to rush. But also how to make the most out of like what the deck gives you at a certain point. Like sometimes you just gotta throw down triggers and bash.
Yeah, I'm not sure how like Nuno was maybe prepared for the game, but it looks like he either adapted in a way or also had a clear game plan for it too. But I guess at one point, did you realize that maybe you need to switch it to a more like deck out style?
Definitely. I think by the time he on the turn that he did Persona, I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Because You got an extra persona, and that brought you to probably the same amount of deck count as he did.
Yes, because he did. The most important part about the mirror was he soul charges.
Yeah, he soul charged. But I guess every single card that you got went to hand, so that kind of maybe elongated that game a bit more.
Yeah.
Versus the Soul Blast 3 draws.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I think one of the things I wanted to point out is that, sort of at the beginning of the game, like the first couple of turns, you see what I consider to be a very typical situation of like a deck being on the aggressive side and the other deck being on the receiving end of the aggressive side.
Yeah.
And the typical, like, if you think back to like the earlier days of Vanguard, usually it's a very typical way of how it played out, where the aggressive side like just do the push and the receiving side try to like deny damages and such, right?
Yes.
But because Gravidia War sort of brands itself as being always the aggressive deck, I think not many people will realize that maybe if you're the one being aggressed on, that you should switch to a different playstyle deck.
True.
Where you normally wouldn't do this kind of like damage denying play.
Yeah, like when you look at the two Media World decks, I have to say, like, you know, the Kelvin's deck was definitely more supposed to be the aggressor.
Yeah, if I went
definitely way more. Because his entire grade 2 lineup is basically for that grade 2 big push, right? But we just saw no push there.
Yep.
And that wasn't from, you know, Kelvin going, I didn't draw the cards. Because he had the CB and things like that. He had the setup was there. He just decided not to go for it, right? So I guess you just have to kind of understand when you're supposed to be the aggressor and when you're supposed to.
It feels like a trap that a lot of people will easily fall into just simply because they're piloting a deck that's meant to be on the aggressive side, that they forget that there are options like these.
Yeah, and especially in the mirror as well, because in the mirror too, you're kind of going, well, let's just throw down stuff and bash or just do something.
Hope for the best. Yeah, which is usually it's okay to do.
Yeah, certain situations come up, some 1 or 2 card differences as well come up that can easily change the the flow of the game.
Definitely.
In a way, and also I guess hold on to your over triggers.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to talk about? Give us the local news.
So actually both of us drew the over trigger like kind of early in the game. It's like I think the first 3 or 4 turns, but we were just like, I can't play in a way that shows them that I've got my over trigger, because that's like one less pressure that you have for the entire of the game, and that's not something you want to lose early. So yeah, just keeping your PGs or guarding like some of the attacks that you would normally take. Yeah, man, you have to respect your opponent and also their over trigger.
I mean, we look at Kelvin and Nuno, and both of them just held on to the over trigger until the very last moment.
Well, if we want to compare it to the first video I watched, both over triggers in the first game got revealed, right? Were revealed basically very soon, and that's not because you were holding on to them; they just got triggered.
Yeah.
So for the rest of that game, you didn't have to worry about any defensive over triggers popping up, but also any offensive over triggers popping up, right?
Well, the best way I can picture it is like it's 2 videos, but it's 2 different ways how to use over trigger in the deck.
Wow.
Even if you don't trigger it, you still gotta use it to your advantage.
So little did we know, both these videos just came to talk about over triggers.
Vanguard.
But no, I think that game was a very good example on how like nuanced standard can be. And how little things, especially like between 2 good players, you know, how just like holding on to the over trigger is just adding so much more extra layer of pressure to the game versus let's throw it out. Now we just go, okay.
It's like an easy guard this turn. Let's check it out. It's the most optimal play.
There's no way I can lose now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think that was a great video. Maybe we'll have another one lined up. But any last words you want to say? Or have fun playing Vanguard.
Definitely. Right. Well. Can't wait for Rock Set 4.
Can't wait for Rock Set 4. Alright.
Just came out.
Yeah.
You can give it rocks.
Sick.
Give it rocks. Very
big rocks.
Big rocks. Alright. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.